My wife is flaunting her affair in my face because she thinks that I'm a loser that needs her. She doesn't realize that I've been gathering evidence in silence, waiting for the perfect moment to shatter her delusion. I'm 33, and Natalie and I have been married for 8 years. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but we were solid, or at least I thought we were. I always tried to be a supportive partner, but a few months ago, I started to see a side of Natalie I'd never seen before. For context, I've been working custodial jobs for most of my life. I've been with the same agency for years, and I've recently been taking night classes to transition into a new career. The work isn't glamorous, but it's honest, and it helps pay the bills. Natalie, on the other hand, has climbed the corporate ladder fast. She's a high-powered finance executive now, always dressed in expensive suits, and she drives a car that costs more than what I make in a year. When we first married, she'd just started her MBA and was struggling to make ends meet alongside me. I was proud of her drive, and I never thought her success would drive a wedge between us. But recently, her attitude toward me shifted. Where she once encouraged me, she started picking fights, nitpicking everything I did, from my clothes to how I spent my downtime. One day I was relaxing after a long shift, just playing some video games to unwind, and she snapped at me, calling me lazy. I was floored. This wasn't the Natalie I knew. The fight stung, but I convinced myself it was just work stress bleeding over. But things only got worse. She started dropping passive-aggressive remarks about men who knew how to provide and make their wives feel special. She'd bring up a coworker she admired, a man who, she said, understood the importance of ambition. She'd leave it hanging, implying I was a failure in comparison. When I tried to defend myself, she'd laugh it off, saying I was overreacting. Then one day, Natalie left her laptop open in the living room, and I caught a glimpse of an email from her coworker. Let's call him Ben, who she was always raving about. The email was flirty, vague enough for plausible deniability, but clearly pushing boundaries. My stomach turned. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I started taking pictures of every incriminating message I found, hoping I was wrong. But it only got worse. Natalie started leaving her phone lying around, conveniently open to messages with Ben. They weren't hiding anything. It was almost like she wanted me to see it. Ben would send texts like, "Last night was amazing, can't wait for the next time," and Natalie would reply with a winking emoji. It was like she was daring me to react, trying to push me over the edge. One evening, I finally broke. I was exhausted from pretending I didn't know what was happening, from living under this cloud of anxiety. I confronted her, phone in hand, showing her all the messages I'd saved. She barely blinked. She smirked, like it was some kind of joke, and accused me of being paranoid. If you're that insecure, maybe you should work on yourself, not even bothering to deny it. I felt the weight of every sacrifice I'd made, every time I'd stayed up late studying to build a future for us, every time I'd let her belittle me, all of it crashing down. That was it for me. I realized she didn't want a partner. She wanted a puppet, and I wasn't going to play her game anymore. Now, I'm preparing for divorce, collecting every piece of evidence I've saved over these months. I've spoken to a lawyer, and I'm making sure that when I walk out, I won't leave empty-handed. The best part? She doesn't even know it's coming. I asked her straight up if she'd slept with Ben. She just laughed at me, crossing her arms, smirk plastered on her face. "And what if I did?" she sneered. "What are you going to do about it?" It felt like someone poured ice water down my spine. My mouth went dry. She kept going, making it crystal clear she didn't think I'd ever have the guts to leave her. Said I was pathetic, that I couldn't do anything without her, that I was lucky to be with her at all. Any chance at fixing things evaporated right then and there. In her eyes, I was just some spineless guy who couldn't fight back. I didn't respond right away. I just stared at her, and she didn't stop. "You should be grateful I ever gave you a chance," she said. "You're nothing without me, wasting time with your little classes, pretending you're going to be somebody. But guess what? I'm the one with a career, not you." It hit like a punch to the gut. I didn't depend on her, but she'd always acted like I was leeching off her. I'd busted my back to keep up my end in this relationship. But hearing this, it stung deeper than I wanted to admit. She just kept going. "You're weak and boring. Ben makes me feel alive in ways you never have." There it was. She admitted she was having an affair. She wasn't just rubbing it in my face, she was reveling in it. And suddenly, the pain shifted. I stopped caring about what she thought. When she was finally done tearing into me, I looked her straight in the eye. "I've been gathering evidence on you for weeks. Every message, every picture, every nasty comment. I've got it all, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who you are." Her smirk faded for the first time. She let out a laugh, but it sounded forced, and then she just stared at me, almost panicked. "Wait, you can't leave me." I didn't reply. I went upstairs and started packing. She trailed behind me, bouncing between insults and pleading, but she never apologized. Not once. There wasn't even a hint of guilt, and that only strengthened my resolve. She tried blocking the door when I left, but I just squeezed past her. I was done. The next few days she kept calling, leaving voicemails trying to play it cool, saying I'd proved my point and could come home. I ignored her. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions. When she tried guilt-tripping me again, I knew she was only embarrassed, never remorseful. The divorce papers hit her hard. She refused to sign, saying I just needed time to cool off. I reminded her she'd signed off on us the moment she invited Ben into her life. My lawyer got me everything I needed. We filed for infidelity, and I went a step further. I knew how much her reputation meant to her, so I compiled every bit of evidence and sent it to her colleagues. All of them. Some clients were on that list too. 3 hours later, she was at my door, banging and screaming like a madwoman. Her hair was a mess, makeup smeared, she looked like something out of a horror flick. She was begging me to open the door, calling me every name under the sun. When I finally opened it, recording the whole thing, she lunged at me. She scratched my face, clawing like a wild animal. I pushed her away and managed to get her out before calling the police. She was arrested on the spot. In court, she was a disaster. The restraining order, evidence of her affair, the verbal and physical assault, she never stood a chance. She tried to get alimony, but my lawyer tore her case to shreds. She ended up with nothing. And her job? Gone. Her company couldn't afford the scandal, so they let her go. She's been struggling to find work ever since. Last I heard, she's trying to start over in another city, but her reputation has followed her. As for me, I'm finally free. I'm moving forward, working to rebuild my life and my self-worth, which she'd stomped on for years. Therapy's helping, slowly. The road's long, but I'm seeing just how much potential I have without her shadow over me. Men, protect your mental health. I learned the hard way. What would you do if you were in my shoes?